in the syllabus, but it's not in any video. So so today's lesson is on the mean value theorem of calculus, right? And আমরা যেটা করব যে we'll look at section 4.2 of Stuart's calculus. On the Stuart's calculus যে textbook আছে, we'll look at section 4.2 of Stuart's calculus. We are not going to prove anything. যেটা মানে আমাদের যে theorem-গুলো আছে, the proofs are given in Stuart's calculus, but we're not going to prove these theorems. We're going to look at these theorems. Actually, we're going to cover two theorems. One is Rolle's theorem, and we will see why Rolle's theorem is a special case. Is a special case of the mean value theorem. Mean value theorem. This is a special case of the mean value theorem. Acha. So far so good. Right. So let's look at Rolle's theorem first. Okay, so this is page number. This is a definition from page number 290 of Stuart's calculus. Right. Page 290 of Stuart's calculus. We're given the statement of Rolle's theorem. Rolle's theorem. Right, and please tell me if there are things that you don't understand, huh? So the statement. What? Someone want to ask me a question?
না স্যার মানে রোলস থিওরাম ঠিক আছে এটা
Right.
প্রবলেম ছিল এটাই
Okay, fine. So let f be a function. So you let f be a function let f be a function that satisfies the following conditions, right? That satisfies the following three conditions. So f এর তিনটা condition থাকতে হবে. So প্রথম condition হচ্ছে যে f is continuous on the closed interval a comma b, right? Do you understand what these square brackets mean?
Yes, sir.
Right. This means that x can be equal to a, and x can be equal to b. And so f is continuous on this closed interval. The second condition is f is differentiable on the open interval Okay, so what is the difference between these closed brackets and these open and these round brackets? So these round brackets, they indicate that x is between a and b, but x cannot be equal to a and b.
Yes, sir.
Right. So that's the only difference. And the third condition is f of a. Actually, this third condition is the most important condition. F of a equals f of b. If these three conditions are satisfied, then মানে প্রথমে যে ফাংশনের যে ভ্যালু ছিল শেষে ফাংশনের একই ভ্যালু হবে বুঝতে পারছো ইন্টারভ্যালের প্রথমে যা ছিল শেষে তাই হবে then
Yes, sir.
right then f prime c must be equal to 0 for some c in this open interval a comma b আচ্ছা এটার মানে কি মানে f মানে এই a আর b এর মাঝখানে কোনো একটা পয়েন্টে f এর ডেরিভেটিভ 0 হবে হ্যাঁ মানে এই ওপেন ইন্টারভাল a b এর মধ্যে কোনো যে কোনো একটা পয়েন্টে f এর ডেরিভেটিভ 0 হবে হ্যাঁ আমরা এটা প্রমাণ করব না বলো
তো এটা কি কার্ভিং পয়েন্টে
Go ahead.
0 হওয়ার কথা না স্যার কার্ভিং পয়েন্টে তো 0 হবে সেখানে কার্ভ হবে গ্রাফে
মানে যেখানে ক্রিটিক্যাল পয়েন্টে রাইট
Yes, yes.
মানে ইটস কল্ড ক্রিটিক্যাল পয়েন্ট মানে where
Yes.
f prime c is 0 right মাঝখানে একটা ক্রিটিক্যাল পয়েন্ট থাকবে আচ্ছা এটা প্রমাণ করব না কিন্তু লেটস সি হোয়াই ইট মেক্স সেন্স হ্যাঁ
Okay, sir.
আমরা right so let's see why it makes sense so let's draw a couple of graphs so আমাদের যদি একটা f এর গ্রাফটা এরকম হয় ধরুন এটা a এটা আমার a আর এটা আমার b এটা আমি মানে একটাই কন্ডিশন মানে লাস্ট কন্ডিশনটা of course it has to be continuous and differentiable কিন্তু শেষের কন্ডিশনটা হচ্ছে কি f of a আর f of b একই হইতে হবে হ্যাঁ f of a is equal to f of b সো এটা যেভাবে যাক না কেন মানে a থেকে b তে যে পাথটাই নিক না কেন at least একটা পয়েন্টে তোমার f prime c0 মানে at least একটা পয়েন্টে রাইট হয়তো এখানে হয়তো এখানে হয়তো এখানে না হয় এখানে না হয় এখানে না হয় এখানে না হয় এখানে মানে it doesn't it make sense যে আমি মানে শুরুতে যে সময় যে অবস্থায় ছিল আর শেষে যদি একই অবস্থায় থাকে তাহলে মানে the theorem is basically saying যে মানে একটা শুরু হয়েছে এক জায়গায় শেষ হয়েছে একই জায়গায় হ্যাঁ তার মানে মানে then মানে if the starting point is the same as the ending point তার মানে either মানে what do we expect to have either the path was a straight line constant for example if the starting point is the same as the ending point হইতে পারে যে it could be that the path was a straight line, right? An ekdom flat একটা straight line. So this is A, this is B, right? Either এরকম হইতে পারে. So the path could be a straight line. So f prime x is 0 everywhere, right? So every point is your C. Or your path could be some curve that looks like this, right? So দেখো এখানেও you have a tangent. I mean, we have a tangent that has a gradient of 0 over here. এখানে দেখো, if you take this to be c, all right, f prime c equals 0. Or your path
স্যার
could look like this. বলো।
ওকে স্যার, একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল, সেটা হচ্ছে হলো আমাদের তো সূত্রে দেওয়া আছে ওপেন ইন্টারভাল এন্ড ক্লোজ ইন্টারভাল, তো আমরা ওপেন ইন্টারভালটা কেন ইউজ করতেছি এই যে f প্রাইম c?
আচ্ছা, it has to be different. It has to be differentiable on the open interval, right? And it has to be continuous on the closed interval. বুঝতে পেরেছো? আমাদের the functions that we have, they have the function that we're talking about, it has to be differentiable in the open interval and continuous on the closed interval. So for example, if it's not continuous, if we don't f prime a and f prime v, they don't have to exist. And what this is basically saying is that f prime a and f prime v don't have to exist. এটা necessary না, যে f prime a আর f prime v যে থাকতে হবে এটার কোনো necessity নেই, কিন্তু f of a মানে but it has to be continuous at a and b. It doesn't have to be differentiable at a and b. a and b ছাড়া বাকি সব জায়গায় differentiable হইতে হবে, but it doesn't have to be differentiable at a and b. Does that make sense?
Yes sir.
Yes sir, definitely.
All right. Actually, so if you look at this path, f prime c equals 0. Actually, let's call this some other point d, right? For this green path as well. So it makes sense, right? আচ্ছা, আরেকটা example দেওয়া যায়. For example, let's say you're in a car and your starting point is A, and you journey from A to somewhere, some other point, and your end point is, it doesn't really matter which path you take, and your end point is A, right? Now, my question is, if your starting point is A and your ending point is A, what is the derivative of displacement? It's velocity, তাই না?
Sir, 0 sir.
Right? So
0, yes.
Yes.
and derivative of
Zero.
displacement is velocity, right? Not 0 everywhere, it's 0
Yes.
at some point, right? কোনো না কোনো একটা সময়
Yes sir.
গাড়ির ভেলোসিটি 0 হইতেই হবে, সবসময় যে হতে হবে তা না, কিন্তু কোনো না কোনো একটা পয়েন্টে গাড়ির ভেলোসিটি 0 হইতে হবে। যেমন তুমি যখন when you turned around, তখন কি করতেছো? What is turning around? Basically যাচ্ছে না, stop and then reverse, right? That's how
Yes.
you turn around, right? So the velocity had to be 0 at one point. So that's an application of Rolle's theorem. Okay, so we can look at some. Now we know why Rolle's theorem makes sense. মানে একটা intuition হয়েছে, আমরা proof করবো না, কিন্তু আমাদের একটা we've developed intuition into as to why it makes sense. মানে it makes sense. It makes sense to us. Right? যেমন you can think of if you throw a ball upwards, right? When you throw it up, its height is 0, right? The height of the ball is given by, for example, actually the height of the ball is given by h of t is equal to ut minus half gt square, right? When you throw a ball upwards. Now, so at some point, And the velocity of the ball is of course given by h prime t is equal to u minus gt, right? So this is the velocity of the ball, v of t, right? This is the velocity of the ball. Now, at some point, since the ball returns to its original position, since the ball returns to its original height, so we know that at some point its velocity equals 0, right? And at some point meaning at t is equal to u over g, the velocity is 0, right? Meaning at its maximum height. We can also okay. So let's look at some other. Let's look at another example of Rolle's theorem, of the application of Rolle's theorem, before we move on to mean value theorem. Right. So so let's say. Actually, so this is example for 2 from page 291 of Stewart's calculus. Example 2, page 291, right? Stewart's calculus. Stewart's calculus. So what does the example ask? Prove that the equation x cubed plus x minus 1 equals 0 has exactly prove that this equation has exactly one solution, right? So it has to have exactly one solution, and we have to prove that it has exactly one solution. So the first thing we want to do is we want to prove that it has a solution, and then the 2 steps in the problem are as follows, right? So the first step is we show that it has a solution. Show that it has a solution. And the second step is we show that the solution is the only solution, right? We first show that it has a solution, then we show that the solution that we have is the only solution. Then and only then we have shown that it has exactly one solution, right? Acha. So in step 2 we will use Rolle's theorem. But what about step 1? How do we show that it has one solution? It has at least one solution. Okay, so if you let, so step 1, this is step 1, and this is step 2. Okay, so let's look at step 1. Step 1, you let f of x equals x cubed plus x minus 1. So you have f of 0 equaling minus 1, and you have f of, which is less than 0, and f of 1 equals 1 plus 1 is 2, equals 1, which is greater than 0. Hence, f of x equals 0 has a solution in the interval, in the open interval 0, 1. Do you agree with me? The f of 0 যদি -1 হয় আর f of 1 যদি +1 হয়, so there's a solution in 0, 1. Do you agree with me? Because actual, the idea is simply this, যে একটা শেপের যদি একটা গ্রাফের যদি f of 0 is -1, right? So let's say this is 0, -1, and f of 1 is f of 1 is 1, right? So you have 1, 1. So এরকম যদি হয়, হ্যাঁ, তাহলে মাঝখানে যে কোনো একটা পয়েন্টে গ্রাফটা 0 হবে। Do you agree?
Yes sir, এখানে 0 হবে।
Right?
Intersection point.
হ্যাঁ, কারণ আমি জানি যে it has to cross 0 at some point, হ্যাঁ? 0 পার হইতে হবে কোন একটা পয়েন্টে। Okay, so this makes sense. So so we know that a solution exists. A solution exists between 0 and 1. Huh. A solution at least one solution. At least one solution. Huh. At least একটা solution আছে between 0 and 1. Huh. This we know. কিন্তু but we don't know if this is the only solution. Huh. We do not know if this is the only solution. We do not know yet. If this is the only solution. আমরা এটা জানি না, অন্য solution থাকতে পারে। So that brings us to step 2. আচ্ছা, so question হচ্ছে যে একটা গ্রাফের যদি একাধিক root থাকে, if a function has more than one root, for example, let's say it has a root. Root meaning when I say root of f of x, I mean solution of f of x equals 0, right? So that's what we mean by root of f of x. So এটা যে একাধিক solution থাকে, if it has more than one solution, what kind of shape do we expect the graph to take? আমার কি এখানে একটা solution আছে ধরো না, আর এখানে একটা solution আছে, এখানে একটা root আছে, এখানে একটা root আছে, হ্যাঁ? So গ্রাফটা হয় তোমার অনেক ধরনের shape নিতে পারে. For example, it could take this shape, right? Or it could take it could look something like this, তাই না? Or it could be flat, একদম সোজা যেতে পারে। তার মানে এখানে মাঝখানে যতগুলো আছে সবগুলাই সলিউশন। কিন্তু একটা জিনিস দেখো যে যদি a আর b যদি সলিউশন থাকে, রাইট? If a or b are roots of f of x, if a and b, and if x is equal to a and x is equal to b are roots of f of x, in other words, solutions of f of x is equal to 0, then f of a equals f of v equals 0. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Acha. So by the mean value theorem, sorry, not the mean value theorem, by Rolle's theorem, then by Rolle's theorem, and by, okay, just give me a moment. I think actually, I think OneNote crashed. সমস্যা নেই. I'll just open up a new window.
Okay, sir.
Okay, just give me a moment. Okay. Sorry for that. This crashed for some reason. Acha. So then by acha, আমরা কি করতেছিলাম যে we were looking at functions with two roots, right? So then so if it has two roots, then and a and v are the roots, then f of a and f of v are both equal to 0, meaning they're the same value. So then by Rolle's theorem, for some c in a comma v, মানে a আর v এর মাঝখানে কোনো একটা c এর জন্য f prime of c has to be 0, তাই না? এখন যদি a আর v তে দুই জায়গায় 0 হয় তাহলে কোনো মাঝখানে কোনো একটা পয়েন্টে ডেরিভেটিভ 0 হয়ে যাবে।
Yes,
Do you
sir.
agree? So এখানে কিন্তু সেটা
Yes, sir.
দেখতেছি, রাইট? এখানে দেখো এখানে একটা ম্যাক্সিমাম হয় 0 হইছে, এখানে মিনিমাম হয় 0 হইছে, কিন্তু 0 হইছে, রাইট? যেমন এখানে I think this is my c here.
Yes, sir.
Or এখানে this is my c and so on and so forth, right? So আমরা সেই জিনিসটা এখানে অ্যাপ্লাই করি, right? For fx equals x cubed plus x minus 1. So so if fx is x cubed plus x minus 1, then f prime x equals thrice x squared plus 1, right? Can you tell me why that this can never be 0? এটা কখনোই 0 হতে পারবে না। আমি একটা স্টেটমেন্ট দিলাম যে f prime x can never be 0. Can you tell me why? Just by looking at f prime x.
স্যার ইকুয়াল টু 0 করলে নরমালি তো নেগেটিভ ভ্যালু আসে, আর এটা যেহেতু x টু দি পাওয়ার 2 আছে, সো এটা সব সময় 2 ভ্যালু থাকবে আর মাইনাসের দিকে ভ্যালুটা চলে
Yeah.
যাবে এর জন্য।
Alright, so this is always greater than or equal to 1, right? F prime x. Acha. F prime x can never be 0. So f prime x যদি কখনো 0 না হয়, if f prime x is never 0, তার মানে what does that mean? তার মানে we cannot have more than one solution. We cannot, meaning f cannot have more than one root. Cannot have more than one root. Because if it had more than one root, then f prime would have been 0 at some point. তাই না? মানে আমরা যেটা দেখলাম যে একাধিক রুট থাকলে কোনো না কোনো পয়েন্টে f prime 0 হইতো। আচ্ছা, এখন so we know that f cannot have more than one root. কিন্তু we already know that f has one root. তাই না? মানে somewhere between 0 and 1. Right? So when আমরা কি বের করলাম, আমরা বের করেছি step 1, we found out that f has one root. One root. Our step 2, we found out that f cannot have more than one root. So can we combine these two to say conclude that the conclusion f has exactly
one solution,
one root, or meaning we can say that fx is equal to 0 has exactly one solution, right? So this is an application of Rolle's theorem, right? Last application of Rolle's theorem, and now we can move on to the statement of the mean value theorem, and we will see why Rolle's theorem is a special case of the mean value theorem. Acha. So let's look at the statement of the mean value theorem. This is on page 291 of Stewart's calculus, right? So mean value theorem. Theorem is on page 291 of Stewart's calculus. Right. So how do we? So how? Let's write a statement of the theorem first. Right. So let f be a function that satisfies the following conditions. Right. So the first condition is f is continuous on the closed interval AB. On the closed interval A comma B. This first condition is the same as the first condition for Rolle's theorem, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, same as the first. In fact, the second condition is also the same.
Yes, sir.
F is differentiable on the open interval AB, right? f is differentiable on the open interval ab. আচ্ছা, তাহলে if these two are true, if these two conditions are true, মানে এই first দুটো condition, the conditions are the same, right? এখন conclusion হইতেছে, now we'll come to a different conclusion now, a more stronger conclusion, a more powerful conclusion. মানে we'll see, মানে আমরা কিন্তু আমাদের একটা কন্ডিশন মিলে নেই, বাই দ্য ওয়ে। যে কন্ডিশন ছিল রোলস থিওরেমে, যে একটা কন্ডিশন ছিল যে f of a is equal to f of b, থার্ড কন্ডিশন, আমরা we do away with that condition, ঠিক আছে? থার্ড কন্ডিশন আমরা বাদ দিয়ে দিলাম, যে f of a is equal to f of b, এটা থাকবে না। হ্যাঁ, তো যেহেতু আমরা থার্ড কন্ডিশন, since we're doing it away, since we're canceling the third condition, we're not imposing the third condition anymore, তাহলে আমাদের কনক্লুশনটা এখন ডিফারেন্ট হবে। হ্যাঁ, our conclusion then is, then for some c in the open interval a comma b, f prime of c equals f prime of c equals f of v minus f of a divided by v minus a, ঠিক আছে? মানে a আর b এর মাঝখানে কোন একটা c তে f of v and so f for some c in between a and b, f prime of c has to be equal to f of v minus f of a by v minus a. আচ্ছা, এখান থেকে can we see why this is why Rolle's theorem is a special case of the mean value theorem? Special case. What was the third condition of Rolle's theorem? যেটা mean value theorem এ নাই?
So f of a equal to f of b.
আচ্ছা, if f of a equals f of b, then
sir
f prime c
would be 0. Yes, sir, 0.
f prime c
0 divided
is equal to 0, right? So this special case is called Rolle's theorem. This special case is called Rolle's theorem. Actually, again, we're not going to be proving the mean value theorem. We're going to see, we're going to try to get some intuition about why it works. For example, I'm actually going to, if I have a graph that looks like this, right? So this is sorry about that. So for example, if it looks something like this, right? So you have a, so this point is a comma f of a. If it's a point on the graph, that the y coordinate is always f of a, right? When if the x coordinate is a, then the y coordinate has to be f of a. And this point, let's say, is b comma f of b. Let's try joining these two with a line. Yes, আমরা কি করেছি যে a comma f of a and b comma f of b, we join them together with a line. Acha, what is the gradient of this line? Can one of you tell me? Gradient of this line?
Sir, like the f prime c, sir. I guess f of b minus f
b
of a. Yes.
Minus f of a, right? Divided by
Minus divided
b
by
minus
b
a.
minus
b
a.
minus a.
Right. So this line.
Yes.
Now, can we find the point on the graph যেখানে the gradient is the same as this? আমরা এখানে দেখো, মানে এখানে যদি গ্রেডিয়েন্টটা বের করি, অথবা এখানে যদি গ্রেডিয়েন্টটা বের করি ট্যানজেন্টটাকেই, তো এখানে যদি গ্রেডিয়েন্টটা বের করি, this is one of my C's, this is another C, this is another C, right? আমরা দেখো আমরা তিনটা পয়েন্ট বের করে ফেলেছি, right? We found 3 points,
Yes, sir.
all right? F prime of C2 and F prime of C3, right? They're all the same and they're equal to F of V minus F of A divided by V minus A. See what happens here? When mean value theorem, the mean value theorem says that there has to be at least one C in the interval A comma B, in the open interval A comma B. Kintu we've found 3 such points, right?
Yes, sir.
When we found something better, right? And
Yes.
do you see why the theorem now makes sense? Huh? যে মানে এটাকে কিন্তু মানে এই লাইনটাকে যদি আমি একটু ঘোরাই, মানে এই পুরো কার্ভটাকে যদি আমি ঘোরাই নিয়ে আসি যাতে f of A and f of B are the same, তাহলে কিন্তু Rolle's theorem হয়ে যাবে, right? It becomes Rolle's theorem. If I were to rotate this curve to make f of A the same as f of B, মানে rotate মানে আমি কি করব যে এটাকে মানে rotate about to this point, right? Then f of A and f of B would be the same, right? And we would
Yes,
have
sir.
Rolle's theorem, right? Acha.
Yes, sir.
So this is again, this is not a proof. This is intuition. Right? This is not a proof. This is our intuition. This is me helping you. This is you trying to figure out why it might work. Huh? Proof. We will not be doing proofs in this course. So, the full proof is actually given in the textbook. If your graph looks like this, and this is A, this point, if this point is A comma FA, then this point is B comma F of B, and you draw a line from A to B, draw a line from A to B, right? The gradient of this line is, of course, the gradient of this line is f of V minus f of A divided by V minus A, and it's the same as this.
Yes.
এখানে
Function of
gradient,
C prime, sir.
right? So f prime. So this is point C comma f of C. So f prime of C equals m, which is the same as f of V minus f of A divided by B minus A. This line has a special name. আমি যদি কার্ভের মধ্যে দুইটা point, if I join them with a line, that line is called a secant, right? When a curve, talk about any curve, and I have a line joining 2 points on the curve. I said a point. So this line, that line is called a secant line. Secant line. Okay, so that's not important right now. But let's look at some examples of the mean value theorem. Right? So for example, if you have a function, example 3 from Stuart's calculus, page 293. Example 3. Page 293. Stuart's calculus. Stuart's calculus. So you have a function, right? F of x equals x cubed minus x. F of x equals x cubed minus x. Now you let a equals 0 and v equals 2, right? A equals 0 and v equal 2. Okay, so then what is the value of f of v? When we want the value of c. What is c? From what is c equal to? Right? যে আমাদের c মানে f prime of c equals f of v minus f of a divided by v minus a. I remember one condition. Remember the condition that c has to be between a and b. When c has to be greater than a, but less than b. Okay, so let's try to figure this out. Actually, can one of you calculate this? F of v minus
Yes, sir.
f of a over
It's quite
divided by
easy,
v
sir.
minus a.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, promise it. So the first one will be 6, sir. 6 minus 0.
Yeah, 6.
6 minus 0
Yeah,
divided
6
by
minus
2,
0.
sir.
3. Right? So this is equal to f of 2 minus f of 0 divided by 2 minus 0, which is 3. So so
Yes,
we have
sir.
to find, right? So we have to find a point C.
3, sir.
Find, yeah, exactly, a point C such that f prime of C is equal to 0. আমাদের এমন একটা C বের করতে হবে point যেখানে f prime of 0 C is not equal to 0 is equal to 3. আমাদের এমন একটা C বের করতে হবে যেখানে f এর first of all C has to be between a and b, and our f এর value has to be f prime value there has to be 3. The value of f prime there has to be 3. Okay, so what is f prime of x? F prime of x equals 3x square minus 1. Right? 3x square?
Yes, sir.
Minus 1.
Minus 1.
And f prime of c
equal to
exactly is minus 1. Right? So yes. 3c square minus 1 is equal to 3, of course. And this gives us c equals such as 4 over 3 plus minus 2 over root 3. Okay, but only one of these solutions is valid. Only one of these solutions is valid. Konta bolo to? Which one of these solutions is valid? Is it the plus one or is it the minus one?
Plus positive value ta.
Plus.
Na sir.
So we'll take the one is in the given range.
Why is the minus one? No, we'll take the positive one. Kintu আমরা why are we discarding the negative one? Why we negative আমরা ফালাই দিতেছি কেন? Because remember, C has to be between A and V, right? And A is 0 and V is 2. So C cannot be negative. So this is since C
yes, sir. The positive
has to be well, let me use since C has to be between 0 and 2, right? So this is my C. We only take the value that's between A and V.
Yes, sir.
Acha. So let's right. So let's look at example 4. Example 4. Again, same book, same page. Stuart's Calculus, page 293. if an object moves in a straight line, right? Let's say if you are driving a car in a straight line, right? If you're driving a car in a straight line, let's say on a straight road. On a straight road, bole. Straight road, and your position at time t is given by s of t, right? S of t. S as a function of t. তাহলে if your position is given by s as a function of t, in that case, right? If in that case, and let's say you start at t is equal to a, and you start at t is equal to a, t is equal to a, and end at t is equal to v, right? So your average speed is given by speed is equal to s of v minus s of a divided by v minus a. তাই না? আচ্ছা, আমরা t is equal to a or v না use করে, let's use better variables. Let's use t is equal to t naught and t is equal to t1, right? So this is t1. Let's use our physics symbols, right? t1 minus t naught, right? Average. This is the average speed throughout the whole journey. When average speed this is when starting when ending minus starting divided by time.
Yes, sir.
Right? Acha. So now by the mean value theorem, at some time t2 between t0 and t1, অর্থাৎ t2 is between t0 and t1, your speed is equal to, or the car speed is equal to the average speed যেমন এটা কেন হবে, because mean value theorem বলতেছে যে for some t2 s prime of t2 is equal to s of t1 minus s of t0 divided by t1 minus t0. তাই না?
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense? তার মানে at t2 so this is a speed at t2 and this is the average speed for the whole journey. Average speed for the whole journey. আচ্ছা, এখানে আমরা একটা জিনিস দেখতে পারি যে what we see from here is that your speed at some point in your journey has to be equal to the average speed for the entire journey. Your speed at some point in the journey has to be equal to the average speed on the whole journey. For example, if you cover covered for example if you covered 180 kilometers in 2 hours, your average speed is 90 kilometers per hour, right?
Yes, sir.
আচ্ছা, so এটা তো অ্যাভারেজ স্পিড, হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু কিন্তু মানে এটা হচ্ছে কিন্তু এই স্পিডটা কিন্তু সবসময় থাকবে না, মাঝে মধ্যে বাড়বে, মাঝে মধ্যে কমবে, রাইট? It's going to be greater than 90 sometime,
Yes, sir.
less than 90 sometime. কিন্তু আমরা এইটা বলতে পারি with confidence then by the mean value theory. Your speedometer must have read 90 kilometers per hour at some point in your journey. অর্থাৎ স্পিডোমিটার তো আমাকে দিবে যে ওই মুহূর্তে আমার স্পিডটা কত, ইট উইল গিভ মি ইনস্ট্যান্টেনিয়াস স্পিড, যে এই সময় এই মুহূর্তে মানে মাই স্পিড এট আ পার্টিকুলার পয়েন্ট ইন টাইম, এট আ পার্টিকুলার মোমেন্ট। তার মানে যে কোনো একটা সময় আমার স্পিড ছিল 90 কিলোমিটার পার আওয়ার, এটা কনফার্মড, এটা আমি মিন ভ্যালু
হ্যালো স্যার,
Hello.
কথা শোনা যাচ্ছে না।
equals s of t1 minus s of t0 by t1 minus t0, and this is the average speed. It is 90 হয় তাহলে then at some point in time this also has to be 90. Is this making sense to you?
Yes sir.
If you're confused, please let me know.
স্যার
Let me know if
এই
you're confused.
সূত্রটার থেকেই তো এই ডেরিভেশনটা এসেছে, যে লাইক মানে স্পিড তো এখান থেকেই বোঝা যাচ্ছে যে অ্যাভারেজে যেহেতু ইকুয়াল
Any
হচ্ছে,
questions?
এর জন্য একটা
হ্যাঁ, মানে যে কোনো একটা মুহূর্তে অ্যাভারেজের সাথে ইকুয়াল হবে, ঠিক আছে? অ্যাভারেজ স্পিডের সাথে ইকুয়াল হবে। In fact, this is why it's called the mean value theorem, by the way.
স্যার কথা একটু কেটে কেটে আসতেছে।
Yes, sir.
At some point, the average rate of change has to be equal to the derivative at some point. বুঝতে পারছো?
স্যার আপনার কথা একটু আগে শোনা যায়নি, কেটে গেছিল।
আচ্ছা, আমি বলতেছি যে মানে if you cover 180 kilometers in 2 hours, right? তাহলে what is your average speed is 90 kilometers per hour?
জি স্যার।
তাই না?
Yes, sir.
আচ্ছা,
Yes, sir.
average
Yes, sir. Definitely.
আচ্ছা তাহলে হ্যাঁ, তাহলে the average speed has to be equal to the instantaneous speed at some point, তাই না? আমাদের মিন ভ্যালু থিওরেম কি বলছে, যে কোনো একটা মুহূর্তে আমার স্পিড average speed এক থাকবে। Isn't that what the mean value theorem is telling me?
Yes, sir.
Yes sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So that's the basic idea. Right? So যে কোনো একটা মুহূর্তে আমার স্পিডোমিটার রিডিং 90 কিলোমিটার পার আওয়ার ছিল, এটা আমি বলতে পারি। So that's why it's called the mean value theorem. ঠিক আছে, যে কোনো একটা মুহূর্তে ডেরিভেটিভের ভ্যালু and the average value and the average speed, for example, they're the same.
Sir, for the mean value theorem, we have to prove it as a continuous, right?
It has to be continuous, yes. Our first condition is that f is continuous on the closed interval AB.
Yes, sir.
And our second condition is f is differentiable on the open interval a comma b. Then for some c in this interval a comma b, you have f prime c is equal to f of b minus f of a by b minus a. So this on this side, this is the average rate of change, right? On the right hand side, you have the average rate of change.
Yes, sir.
Final by initial divided by distance, rate of change, distance or time by v minus a. And f prime c is the instantaneous rate of change. Instantaneous rate of change. ঠিক আছে, ওই মুহূর্তে চেঞ্জটা কিরকম, রেট অফ চেঞ্জ কিরকম, রাইট? দুইটা যখন ইকুয়াল, যে মিন ভ্যালু থিওরেম বলতেছে যে কোনো একটা পয়েন্টে, if f satisfies the two conditions and at least at some point the instantaneous rate of change and the average rate of change, they have to be the same. এখন ওখানে বলছে at least at some point, যখন আমি বলি at least at some point, তার একটা যে মিনিমাম একটা পয়েন্ট, means that there's minimum one point where the instantaneous rate of change and the average rate of change are the same. Now you can have more than one point, you can have 2 points, 3 points, you can have infinitely many points, right? There has to be at least one point. And that's the logic of the mean value theorem. That's the basic idea, sorry, behind the mean value theorem. Okay, so we'll look at a few more examples, then we'll look at another example of the mean value theorem. Example 5, page 294. Right? Example 5. The mean is just another way of saying average, right? Mean is just another way of saying average. Example 5, page 294, Stewart's calculus. Question is, suppose f of 0 is equal to -3. We have f of 0 equals -3, and f prime of x is less than or equal to 5. Is less than or equal to 5 for all values of x. For all values of x, right? The question is, what is the largest possible value of f of 2? What is the largest possible value of f of 2? And assume that f satisfies the conditions for the mean value theorem. When f it's differentiable, continuous, এগুলো সবকিছু satisfy করে। So we assume that f is differentiable, on 0, 2 and continuous and UOUS on 0, 2, on the closed interval 0, 2 and differentiable on the open interval 0, 2. So the question is, what is the largest possible value of f of 2? let's see what the mean value theorem tells us, right? What does the mean value theorem tell us? So the solution is as follows. Solution. So we know f of 2, f of 0. We know that f prime x is less than or equal to 5. And we want to find the largest possible value of f of 2 with only this information. আমাদের আর কোনো information নেই. Okay. By the mean value theorem, there exists some c, it's a number c in 0, 2, meaning c is greater than 0 and less than 2, such that f prime of c equals f of 2 minus f of 0 divided by 2 minus 0. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So what is f of, we don't know f of 2 yet. We don't know f of 2 at all. We know f of 0. F of 0 is equal to minus 3. So this is f of 2 plus 3 divided by 2. তার মানে f of 2 equals 2f prime c minus 3. তাই না?
Yes, sir.
Right. কিন্তু আমরা জানি যে we know that f prime of x, when in the question in the question is given that f prime of x is less than or equal to 5. This is something that's given in the question. I mean, we know that f prime of c also has to be less than or equal to 5.
Yes, sir.
Right? So f prime of x is also less than or equal to 5. তার মানে f of 2, which is equal to 2f prime of c minus 3, it has to be less than or equal to 2 times 5 minus 3, which is 7.
Yes, sir.
All right?
Yes, sir.
So we know that f of 2 is less than or equal to 7. তার মানে the highest possible value of f of 2 is 7, because f of 2 হয় 7 বা 7 এর কম.
Yes, sir. The highest value will be 7, sir.
Right? So the highest possible value, it has to be equal to 7. So these are, so this is another example of the mean value theorem. We have a couple of corollaries, right? COR to the mean value theorem. We have a couple of corollaries to the mean value theorem. So corollary, what is a corollary? Is a consequence. ঠিক আছে? মানে consequence that follows. মানে mean value theorem থেকে, মানে সহজ বাংলায় mean value theorem থেকে আরো ছোটখাটো একটা থিওরেম বের করা, ঠিক আছে, যেটা হয়তো এত ইম্পর্টেন্ট না, that is less general, কিন্তু that is useful, right? মানে I already know the major theorem, which is the mean value theorem. So corollary is something that is not as important, that is not as general, কিন্তু it's useful. So a couple of corollaries to the mean value theorem. Actually, so the first corollary is if f prime of x equals 0 for all x in this interval in a comma b, in the open interval a comma b, then f is constant on the entire interval, right? On the closed interval a comma b. Asha, isn't this something that's intuitively obvious? যে তুমি যদি চিন্তা করো যে f prime x equals 0, what does that mean? That means that the graph does not change at all, right? It's a straight line. It's a horizontal line. That means shouldn't it be constant when if f prime x is 0?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Right? আচ্ছা তাহলে so in that case আচ্ছা কিন্তু এখানে একটা ছোট একটা ডিফারেন্স, if it is constant, the only difference here is that if it is if the derivative is 0 in a comma b, then f is constant a comma b as in the open interval a comma b, then it is constant in the closed interval a comma b, and this follows from the mean value theorem. How does it follow from the mean value theorem? So if f prime x is 0, right? So by the mean value theorem, so the proof is this. By the mean value theorem, right? There exists some c, some point c in let's say let's do something else first. Let's pick some points in x1 and x in interval a comma b. When let x1 and x2 be numbers such that when x1 is between a and b, and x2 is in a and b, and x1 is less than x2, right? Asha. So if this is the case, then it is true. Asha. So can we now f is now x1 and x2, right? They're between a and b, right? So এখানে যদি sorry, let me draw a proper straight line. So you have a at one end, you have b at the other end. So x1 is, let's say, here, and x2 is here. Asha. Remember, f is differentiable in the open interval a comma b, right? So if f is differentiable in this open interval a comma b, so we know that f is differentiable. Sorry, f is differentiable on the open interval x1 comma x2, because এই পুরাটার মধ্যে যদি ডিফারেন্সিয়েবল হয় তাহলে এইটুকের মধ্যে ডিফারেন্সিয়েবল হবে, তাই না?
জি স্যার। Yes sir.
Right? আর f is continuous on on x1 comma x2. Keno? Because if it is continuous on this whole interval, then it is continuous on this smaller interval as well.
Yes, sir.
Acha. So instead of taking a and v, right, আমরা কি বলতে পারি না যে x1 and x, so x1 or x2, they also satisfy the conditions for the mean value theorem?
Yes,
তাই
sir.
না?
Yes,
Right,
sir.
so we,
Both the
so we can take a c here. এখানে on c, so there exists c such that c হইতেছে x1 or x2 এর মাঝখানে. C is between x1 and x2, such that f prime of c equals f of x2 minus f of x1 divided by x2 minus x1. Right?
yes, sir.
Wait, a mean value theorem, right? MVT. We'll call the mean value theorem the MVT. Asha. Now, if that is the case, but f prime x is 0 for all x in a comma b. মানে if পুরো লাইনের উপরে f prime x is equal to 0, right? তার মানে we can say that f prime of c is equal to 0, right? That's what the question
Yes, sir.
says. Right? That's what the theorem says. The corollary says. Now, if f prime of x is equal to 0, then f of x1 equals f of x2. Then,
So it goes with the rules theorem, sir. Then
exactly, right? So then,
yes, sir.
then f is constant in a comma b, right? এই যে মানে এর মধ্যে মানে আমি x1 আর x2 যেখানেই নেই না কেন a আর b এর মধ্যে, wherever I take x1 and x2, f of x1 has to be equal to f of x2 যদি এই কন্ডিশনটা ফুলফিল হয়, তাই না?
Yes, sir.
All right, so এটা so we have proved this. So we'll write QED. When you finish a proof, usually people write QED, or এটা করা যায় অথবা you can draw a small square and shade it. ঠিক আছে, ছোট একটা square কে shade করা মানে when you draw a small black box, it means that you finish the proof. Okay, now the proof isn't all that important. I just wanted to show you how it comes from the mean value theorem, right? We're going to use
That
this
means,
to
sir, the rules theorem. The rules theorem is a part of, sir, mean value theorem.
this isn't exactly a Rolle's theorem. এখানে
Yes,
I
sir.
understand যে এখানে f prime of c is equal to 0.
Yes, sir.
That's Rolle's theorem. কিন্তু এখানে জিনিস হচ্ছে যে মানে Rolle's theorem কি ছিল বলি, Rolle's theorem ছিল যে there is at least one point where f prime of c is equal to 0, right?
Yes, sir.
আর
Yes,
এখানে
sir.
কি বলতেছে যে f prime of c is equal to 0 is 0 everywhere in the interval.
Everywhere.
বুঝতে পারছো?
Okay, sir. বুঝতে
Rolle's
পেরেছি,
theorem
sir. ওখানে,
বলতেছে
sir, এটা at least.
right?
Yes, sir.
আর এখানে বলছে যে সব জায়গায় হইতে হবে।
0 তো হবে।
Yeah, that's the difference. আচ্ছা, so আমরা এটা দিয়ে আমরা we'll prove a trigonometric identity, and that'll be the end of the lecture, I guess. We'll use this corollary to prove a trigonometric identity.
Okay,
আচ্ছা,
sir.
ঠিক আছে। So আমরা প্রমাণ করব যে tan inverse x plus cot inverse x is always equal to pi over 2. Now we can use trigonometry to prove this. কিন্তু a better way to do it is using calculus, right? The mean value theorem. Actually, so we have to prove this. To prove, ঠিক আছে? Using the corollary. আচ্ছা, now এটাকে একটা constant on the right hand side you have a constant value মানে it's always equal to pi over 2 মানে x এর তুমি মানে whatever value for x you take is going to equal pi over 2 okay so let f of x equal tan inverse x plus cot inverse x. What is f prime x equal to? Tan inverse x such a 1 over 1 plus x square, or cot inverse x such a minus 1 over 1 plus
1
x.
plus, yes sir.
Right? When they're both when just actor minus. You can show this yourself. You can verify this yourself.
Yes sir, opposite.
Right? Actually, this is equal to 0 everywhere. Then when this you end up getting 0. Right?
sir.
Now
Yes sir.
এখানে কি বলতেছে যে if f prime of x is 0 for all x in a comma b তার মানে এখানে আমাদের f prime of x is equal to 0 f prime of x is equal to 0 for all x in minus infinity to plus infinity, right?
Yes sir.
মানে সব জায়গায় 0. So this is my a minus infinity and v is equal to plus infinity, right? Acha.
Yes sir.
All right. So what does the corollary say? If this is equal to 0 and all x in a and b, then f is constant on the closed interval a comma b. And then f is constant on, okay, let's write fx. আচ্ছা এখানে একটা point I have to make a point here যে you cannot write a closed interval মানে infinite মানে with infinity you cannot write a closed interval, so it has to be an open interval. What's the word?
Yes sir.
মানে I
Yes,
cannot
sir.
write a closed interval, right?
Yes,
আচ্ছা so আমরা একটা জিনিস দেখতে পেয়েছি যে tan inverse x plus cot inverse x is constant on minus infinity to plus infinity. It's constant on this interval. কিন্তু আমাদের কি প্রমাণ করতে হবে যে that this is equal to pi over 2. Sir, আমরা প্রমাণ করেছি that it's constant, কিন্তু we have to prove that it is equal to pi over 2.
Yes sir.
হ্যাঁ তার মানে কি যে সব জায়গায় সেম ভ্যালু থাকার
তাহলে
কথা,
স্যার
right?
কনস্ট্যান্ট এই স্যার পাই। Yes sir. Yes sir.
So it's
না,
a
না,
straight
আমরা-
line.
আমরা-
So
আমরা এখনো জানি না যে মানে we still don't know what that constant is, right? So আমরা একটা কাজ করতে পারি।
Yes sir.
So আমরা জানি যে f যেমন আমরা যদি f of 1 নেই, হ্যাঁ, না আমরা কনস্ট্যান্ট বের করছি যে tan inverse x plus cot inverse x এটা একটা কনস্ট্যান্ট হবে, সবসময় সেম ভ্যালু দিবে। কিন্তু
Yes,
এটা আমরা দেখাতে পারছি, মানে we managed to show this, কিন্তু আমরা কোন কনস্ট্যান্ট দিবে সেটা দেখাতে পারিনি। We haven't shown what value it's going to give us. So what is f of 1 equal to? Tan inverse 1 plus cot inverse 1, তাই না?
yes sir.
Yes sir.
আচ্ছা tan inverse 1 we know is pi over 4.
Yes sir.
What is cot inverse 1? মানে যদি cot theta যদি 1 হয় তাহলে tan theta 1 হবে, so theta হবে pi over 4, so cot inverse 1 is also pi over 4, right?
Yes sir.
So this is equal to pi over 2, তাই না?
Yes sir. Pi over 2.
Yes sir.
Right? আচ্ছা এখন আমি 1 এ কেন নিলাম? আমি যদি -1 এও নেই, would it have made a difference? কারণ
No,
আমরা
sir.
বের করছি, it wouldn't, কারণ it's always the same. হ্যাঁ, so same আসার কথা, right? So
Yes, sir.
tan inverse -1 plus cot inverse -1, right? Now ইয়াগুলো different হবে, right? The
Nice.
individual values are going to be different, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
for example, tan inverse -1 could be -π/4. আচ্ছা, মানে the values are going to be different, কিন্তু they will add up to the same. When if you work this out, the values are different, so they'll add up to the same angle, right?
5/2, sir. Yes, sir.
Right? They'll add up to the same angle, 5/2. F of 2, any value you take, 1.9, for example, right? Tan inverse, 1.9 plus cot inverse 1.9 will also give you 5/2. কেন? How do I know this? Because আমি জানি যে f is constant everywhere. So আমাকে একটা পয়েন্টে নিলে কাজ হয়ে গেল। Did that make sense?
Yes, sir. তো স্যার ম্যাথমেটিক্যালি স্যার আমার 2-1 পয়েন্ট দিয়ে স্যার প্রুফ করে দিলেই হবে স্যার। লাইক I have used 1
মানে
and
একটা
-1.
একটা পয়েন্টই দেখাতে পারলে হলো, দু একটাও না, জাস্ট
Yes,
একটা
sir. আচ্ছা,
মানে
একটা
এত
পয়েন্ট
কিছু
দেখালে
লাগবে না, জাস্ট একটা দেখালেই হলো।
আচ্ছা।
কারণ আমি তো অলরেডি প্রমাণ করে দিছি যে ইটস কনস্ট্যান্ট, রাইট?
It's constant.
অলরেডি
Yes.
প্রমাণ করে দিছি ইটস কনস্ট্যান্ট, আর কিছু করার দরকার নেই আমার। So in fact we should be able to show this just give me a moment. Arc tan x plus arc cot x. দেখো একদম মানে do you see the straight line?
Yes, sir.
মানে around, মানে it's around that এই যে দেখো 5/2, মানে the y coordinate is always 5/2. The x coordinate যাই চেঞ্জ করে না কেন, y coordinate is always 5/2. ঠিক আছে? So and we showed this using the mean value theorem. All right, so just let me know how you found this class. মানে এটা কি তোমাদের কোনো বুঝতে সমস্যা হয়েছে কিছু?
No,
No, sir. It's actually quite clear, sir, and precise.
Okay, thank you then. তাহলে thank you so much for showing up, for your cooperation. মানে আমরা এটাই this is going to be our basically this is going to be a lecture video in week 3. মানে mean value theorem যে ভিডিওটা হবে এটাই হবে, ঠিক আছে?
yes, sir.
Okay, so all right then. So thank you so much. I'll see you guys then later. Huh? That's the end of the class.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Bye, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
বাই
assalam.
স্যার।
Thank you.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
Walaikum
Assalamu
assalam. Walaikum assalam.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম স্যার।
Walaikum assalam.